I'm delighted to be with all of you for the second year in a row. And I really do want to start, believe it or not, with global, digital, and responsible. It's, for me, usually the theme of the conference is kind of a throwaway. That's actually not true this year. These are the three structural issues where there's opportunity, where there's volatility, and where we are facing real challenges. First, in terms of global, we have entered a geopolitical recession, a world where all of the major pieces are suddenly in flux. Now, there's lots of reasons for that. We can talk about how the Americans, we've got Trump, we've got Sanders, we're angry with our political system. We don't want to be the global policeman or the architect of global trade or the cheerleader of global values. We can talk about American allies being weaker, being more divided. We could talk about Russia being in decline and looking to undermine the United States and its allies, both domestically and the transatlantic relationship. We can talk about China, much larger, a much greater piece of global growth and global uncertainty, even than just last year. Never mind the comparison between coronavirus and SARS and what that'll mean for the global economy, and also that they're building competing models. But all of it comes down to something very simple, which is that when we set up institutions, norms, values globally, they reflect pretty well, usually, the world order at the time. NATO's not going anywhere. On that one, Trump, you may remember, said it was obsolete. It's the one time I've seen him as president say he was wrong about something. You know that? He then came out after he was president and said, you know, I was wrong, it's not obsolete. So because I'm a real estate guy and I didn't really know much about national security. I've actually not seen him do that on any other foreign policy issue. But NATO no longer does reflect the kind of security concerns. I mean, it's built to stop tanks from going across the borders, not little green men from going into Southeast Ukraine. It's built for the nuclear balance, but not to deal with cyber attacks and malware. So, I mean, in that regard, it kind of is obsolete. It needs to be changed, adapted, to reflect a dramatically changed 2020 geopolitical order. Now, within the context of global, digital and responsible are the two things that are truly changing right now that the geopolitical backdrop doesn't give us as much resilience as we'd like. First of all, the digital. You saw in the last presentation all the good news right at the beginning, and I buy that good news. It's fantastic stuff. It's what happens when people and goods and services and ideas and data move faster and faster across borders. It's how we get a global middle class. It's how we empower people all over the world to come up with ideas that are part of solutions and not just being disenfranchised. That's extraordinary. And it's not the end of globalization. But there is no question that the decision of the Chinese and the Americans to decouple their technology systems from one another, their data systems from one another, is the most transformative against globalization that we have seen in geopolitics in generations. Then the question of responsible. If digital right now is dividing the world into two different blocks, responsible is bringing the world wholly together again. You know, the single most productive moment of the nuclear arms race between the Americans and the Soviets was when Reagan and Gorbachev met, and they stepped into a cabin, and President Reagan, who always had this cinematic flair, right, asked Gorbachev, you know, if aliens came and they were going to attack us, you'd support us, you'd defend us, wouldn't you? And Gorbachev said, of course. And he said, you know, we'd do the same for you. And that moment actually completely changed the relationship between the two leaders and led to historic arms reduction. It is clear that climate represents that existential moment and threat that the aliens did for Reagan. We, for the first time in our collective experience on this planet, are facing a feedback loop on the back of the globalization that we've enjoyed.